Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing podcast, Late Night with Chefs. Is there who's?
Not
Oh,
mine.
That's not mine.
that's my phone.
Oh,
Well,
Vlad.
back to it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to amazing another. Wow, that I'm just butchering that. That's the first time I ever
Phone got you
stumbled on that.
distracted.
All right, guys, welcome to another amazing podcast, Late Night with Chefs. Truffle Boy and Doug reporting for duty, and we have an amazing guest. While Doug's face is a little frozen, we have amazing guest Chef Earl in the house tonight. Gonna cozy up for a nice hour, maybe a little bit longer. Depends where the conversations get us. But as always, thank you guys for tuning in. We are super excited. Hello, chefs. How's everyone doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for kidding me in. It's really cold outside, so
Yeah, no,
the-
it's freezing out in the United States. Doug is a
Wow.
little bit lucky there.
You know, us in Florida, 70 degrees outside. Was on my rollerblades earlier today in the parking lot, so
man,
nice
what a
80
dream.
degrees down here. Yes. But it is a beautiful, beautiful night out here. Late Night with Chefs. We have Chef Earl with us.
Hello.
Chef is coming from Canada, so our first Canada-based chef, which would be awesome to hear perspective and kind of where your journey began. So, without further ado, Chef Earl, if you want to tell our followers and our viewers who are tuning in, hello, and kind of give us a little bit of your background story.
Sure. Probably gonna go on a tangent because that's just how I am. But
We
hello
love
to
it.
everybody. I am Chef Earl Briones. Um, my story of culinary journey is kind of weird, and really, it's very it's very appropriate for me once you get to know me. For me, food was really big. Starting living in the Philippines as a child, I was there till I was 12. So any birthday, any reason to really kind of go all out, there's food like in the little communities, you know. And I didn't grow up really rich. I was I'd say like lower middle class. So like even the poor will have like food, like as much as they can. So for me, food was always big. It was big part of my life. All of my memories, all of the senses tied to the Philippines are from food, from smells, from sensory, like anything, right? So when I got to Canada, it's very Filipino to like try to do university and get like a career. There's not many that gonna go to overseas and still do like cooking or your usual like what would be the trades, right? But I never really liked university, so I dropped out or started cooking short order, probably as a lot of us started. I remember it was wok woks, slinging. That's where I learned how to sling pans, multiple pans at one time. Uh,
And
eventually,
so to all our viewers, I'm not actually I've never heard of Wok Wok, but I'd be pretty interested if you can give me just like their mission statement, spiel, menu type of thing.
honestly, I was 16, so mission statement's a little hard to kind
Well,
of bring
mission
out. My mission
statement's a
statement,
little far fetched, but
my mission statement at that point was I need money to buy CDs. So I would say they were a part of the of a boom back then of like the Asian takeout and a takeout box. You know, what I'm talking about like the people that have like you choose your own like vegetables and your meat, and you choose your own noodles
It's
or
like
rice, and you toss it.
Canadian-based Panda Express type of
It's exactly what it is, except it's short order. It's
nice.
even faster than Chinese food somehow. But yeah,
So,
that's where. Right?
so I was saying, so bringing us, back to your early beginnings, what did that, sort of family event look like for you? Who was in the kitchen? Who was cooking all that food from your early childhood?
Um, yeah, for me personally, it was my mom or my grandma once in a while. They were really cooking all the food, and then pretty much everybody cooks, right? So, um,
So,
you just grew up in like men and women cooking around you, and like everybody has their own recipe. Everybody believes they're the best at what they're doing, so you get a flux of like recipes as you're like learning how to cook, even when you're only like 10 or like 8, right? Um, but Yeah, and but that was a big impact. I feel like I wouldn't be half the chef I am if I didn't, experience like what I experienced in the Philippines. Even though I was only until I was 12. Um, but yeah, eventually I kind of got curious into like you see all these like people my coach cooking, so I wanted to get into a job that had. For me, at that moment in my career, the coat was a big thing. Um, I really wanted the white coat. I remember putting it on the first time when I worked at his restaurant group, like outfit. I put it on the first time. I know it's cheesy, and there's probably people probably listening going, "Ugh," but for me, it was one of
Hey,
those things. You finally
I
put it
gotta
on
stay
after.
true. I think me and Doug were the same way. I mean, getting that white coat, that's a big, achievement and, self accomplishment, and it's a point where you could look back, into your career, prior
Yeah.
to
Oh
that,
yeah.
and then, you know, kind of before the chef jacket and after the chef jacket.
The one thing is like I didn't really realize like the importance of jacket because I was like when I started at Joey's I was just doing dishwashing. I was there for like 6 months, but I think every chef should go to the dishwashing like um station. I think everybody should experience that. That is when you finally realize that dishwashers are one of the most important people in our industry. They take a lot of shit. It's a wet, humid, greasy job, and God bless their souls of people of our dishwashers who like do this as a career almost like um
Definitely.
yeah, and then Joey's mission statement at that point was integrity and um pride in your work, and that was really the place where I learned how to like clean as you go.
Was there a
Arrange my
certain chef that became your mentor and kind of guided you to kind of where you are at, maybe at Joey's or maybe prior or after that?
there's been a multiple. I've been lucky to kind of garner like a lot of mentors just because like I'm not sure if it's a good or bad sign. Maybe it's bad and that I need mentorship. But um, at Joey's, my old night sous chef Scott and my day sous were both kind of they were developing me into like more of just like a corporate chef. It's actually because of them that I left corporate restaurants because I was like I wanted to learn more. If you look at my resume, for those who probably have seen it, I kind of jump every 2 years or so because that's kind of my personality. I like to learn more. I buy into like the company program, I guess you could say.
Right.
Um, and then
The
I
good
do,
incentives that they
yeah,
bring with
and I
them.
try to you try to push as much as you can throughout. I've gone through a lot of restaurants. I've tried different restaurants just because I wanted to see what it was like, right? So Joey's was the corporate. I left that to go join another corporate outfit because at that point I was like 23 and trying to prove to the world that like I can run a restaurant. So I just wanted the label. I was hunting for that executive chef label. Um, but that's also when I learned that it doesn't mean anything if you can't cook. So I got it. I worked and I was like, I'm a paper chef. This is ridiculous. Like I don't know how to make your the basics that like like a culinary student graduate or even just going through would know like off the bat if you ask them. So I quit being like a leading
Well.
corporate.
So now that we're at that subject,
Yeah.
and
Oh no.
this brings me into my favorite. I'm not gonna put you on the spot, Chef Earl. I'm gonna put Chef Doug first because he's had a little bit of a time, and
Oh,
he's heard
is
this
this the mother
question
sauce
before.
question?
Oh
Yes.
boy.
You see, Vlad, here's the thing is I've been doing my studying, Vlad.
All right. So I want to hear, what are the 5 mother sauces?
So our five mother sauces. The two that I didn't remember last time that I did look up and figured out is espagnola sauce and tomato sauce. Then you have your hollandaise. We have our velouté, and we have our bechamel.
Wonderful. That
I know.
brings
You weren't gonna get me twice, Vlad.
I love
You weren't
that. I
gonna.
love that. And that's I didn't want to put Chef Earl on the spot, but I think those things are important in terms of
They are.
foundation.
They really
Oh
are.
yeah.
But we were talking about New Dude Foods. They kind of just went for it, and it kind of just improved as they were growing it as well. And they built their own foundation. And sometimes it
Yeah.
takes longer than culinary school, where it's a program. They train you and shoot you out into the
2
world.
years, yeah.
Yeah. So
Uh,
it's kind of a toss, right? We've seen, you know, three Michelin star chefs with, you know, no real, you know, background other than, you know, getting mentored and just slaving away and starting at the dish pit, and then you see, you know, three Michelin star chefs that went to CIA, then worked at Alinea, and then went off and did their own thing. So it really it's all about the hustle, right?
Oh yeah, I think that's what's cool about our industry, right? It doesn't really matter where you come from, how much money you have. If you've got like the work ethic, the drive, and like a little bit of flair and like kind of your own
Ideas, right? Oh,
purpose to your cooking, I think you'll do fine.
So, Chef Earl, you talked about this a little bit, but moving from the Philippines to Canada to go to university, what was that first thought? It sounded like maybe culinary wasn't what you went to university for. What was the first pipe dream?
Well, it's kind of funny because like when I moved to Canada, I'm a big history nerd, and that's actually kind of half the reason why I got into cooking. But I got into Canada, I was like, all right, so I'm now gonna do a trade. I'm gonna, I was only a kid. I was like 12, 13. So like, traveling across the world by yourself, you kind of get a little bit of like time to kind of think, right? Also, a 12-year-old traveling the world by yourself, I don't recommend it because it's really dangerous nowadays. But having done it, it's hilariously fun.
Yeah,
Um,
I that's definitely I don't know. That's a scary thought for sure.
I honestly, I think people were like figuring out I'd get lost, but like I got to Canada somehow. So, yeah. Coming here, I knew that I wanted to do something more because I wanted, like, my sisters all went to university. So my first thing actually was a major in archaeology and a minor in anthropology. I wanted to be like I wanted to come go around and dig like our history, right? So, but that was the first pipe dream, and then I had a really good professor my first year for Anthro 101, and he kind of just told me like the reality of being an anthropologist, and I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. So like, so I decided that I hate money and I started cooking. But like,
Well, yeah,
honestly, aside from the joke, I think cooking honestly has been a good fit for me. You know, culture wise, it allows me a lot of things. As people probably don't think, anyways. But yeah, there's a lot of avenues you can go from cooking.
there definitely is. Our food and beverage industry is very diverse. I mean, even just from different back of house jobs, but I mean, there's so much consultant work you could do, like, different intellectual properties you can own and patents in cooking and, you know, cooking ware manufacturers. And um, it's definitely a wide open field with a lot of possibilities.
well, and then, you know, all the crossover skills that you get, you know, prep lists, organization,
Yeah,
being on time, you know, things that kind of school, you know, teaches you early on. And then, you know, the
just
brigade,
gives up.
you know, the system has to work. Everybody has to follow suit and, you know, follow order and, you
Yeah,
know, complete their
there's
job.
definitely.
So there's a lot of crossover in other, you know, if you venture off. And I think Anthony Bourdain, you know, said it. I think every person should learn how to, you know, cook or, you know, for themselves. Because worst case, you know, if you don't become a chef or, you know, whatever, three Michelin star, 17 Michelin stars, you know, you at least can take away, you're going to know how to cook for yourself and provide, you know, food. Because you go to the grocery store, and cook for yourself, you know, you can make a lot more things.
Yep. Yeah, and he's right. Everybody needs to have that basic skills. Like, I feel like it is baffling because the one big thing that changed culturally for me coming to Canada was like the home ec aspect of schooling is not there pretty much. Like it's there, but it's not very like it feels like it's just there to exist. Like in the Philippines, we had like, the only reason I know how to stitch is because of my home ec because we had like at least a good 2 weeks of stitching, right? So like I feel like people do in fact we need to like ah sorry. I feel like people do need to learn or at least attempt or at least have a place where they can learn the basics. It doesn't make us
Definitely.
obsolete because like, we'll still have jobs, but I mean,
I loved home ed class, dude. I made a pillow. We learned how to sew pillows, stuff it.
yeah.
That's where, honestly, that's where I got my start. With all those like cooking I remember we were making like quick bisque breads and super easy dumbed down recipes.
Well,
Um, but I was like always that guy, room full of women that want to bake cookies, and I'm like,
I
yo,
was the
I
same
love
way.
I love
Creative
all of
cuisine
that.
class. Yep. That was a good time. I mean, and the best part was, I mean, you were always the cool kid because whatever the next period was, you had food that you had just made, and now
Yeah,
you
Yup.
brought it
exactly.
into the next class with you. So,
Paper
Now you've
plate
got a
and
snack.
tinfoil.
You got an A and you got a fucking snack. Like, what else do you want?
100%. I'm
exactly.
I'm definitely all for consumer ed or home ed or whatever they call it. I think that is a super important skill, and the people that want to proceed with cooking and that get that early chance and early access into that life.
Yeah. Again, this kind of ties into like my next one, but yeah. Um, I guess like I kind of skipped learning the basics because I was again hunting for that. You get inundated with all this media about like these celebrity chefs and all these, and you kind of starting out, you kind of start. You think that's the aim, right? So
Right. That's the dream. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
for me now, there's nothing better than to not realize that's not the dream and actually like kind of doing little bits and pieces of it. But yeah, I think my culinary like real like dive into culinary started at Lux, which is like after I left corporate. The basics, like I said, was tied in there because I remember coming in cocky as fuck, 24-year-old, um, coming in this kitchen. I'm like, I've run kitchens before. I got this. I know what to do. Go in. It's my garde manger thing. It's gonna be a breeze. And then chef goes, okay, so you guys need to make mayo today. I need to bake this like flourless chocolate cake. And at that moment, I was like, I don't know how to make a mayo. What? Like we don't just buy mayo? And he's like, no, you got to make it yourself. And I was like, okay. And he's like, you don't know how? I was like, well, I don't know how to bake either. And he's like, your resume says you run restaurants, but you don't know how to bake a cake or make a mayo. He's like, that's very interesting. And so he showed me, and he's like, maybe you should learn the basics first. And that was pretty much the theme of Lux my entire career there. Chef Matt Phillips, he to this day I still attribute a lot of my like success to him and like what I've been able to do because um, not only did he allow me to make mistakes and he just kind of taught me like, that's why this is a mistake. He trusted me enough to like, help with the menu sometimes, make a menu. He gave me that freedom to kind of explore and actually like put thought into like a product and like, he also taught me how to food cost. He also taught me he taught me a lot of the basics of the industry, which is honestly to this day like no other lesson that I've learned has been more important than those that he taught me. Especially like the before you jump, you need to learn the basics. Like, because at that point, gastronomy was taking off. It was the brand new sparkling thing, and I
Yeah.
was definitely one of those guys that were like, gel everything.
You
And
and
then he's,
Vlad both.
Yep.
and then he's like, you can't even make a hollandaise. Shut up and start making like, goddamn hollandaise first. I'm like, oh, okay, chef, sorry, you're right.
You speak similar words of my experiences. I think one of my greatest mentor, Giuseppe Tentori, who kind of like took me under his wing and baby can't even say that
Babied
right,
you.
babied me, to what I am today. I was always that guy where it's like, all right, can we add ultra text to this? Can we?
That's
Can
me
we?
too.
Yeah, I'm serious, and a lot of people who are hopefully listening to this podcast and have enjoyed my time in the kitchen. I'm usually with my phone out and seeing what foam or thing I can add, and Giuseppe would always be like, learn the basic, get good at the basics, and then we could talk about it. And I think bringing up that point to my and Chef Doug's time in culinary school, I think even back in culinary school, I was trying to push boundaries, and my chef's like, "Yo, dude, like that's
Yeah.
all fun and cool, but
Yeah.
like this is not the program. Like,
Yeah.
get this down first."
I'm definitely the same. I was one of those guys that was like, but how can we take that further? But then, at that point, it's the wonder. I think it's the fun part about being a new chef. It's the funnest probably phase and also the most terrifying back then. Was just experimenting, right? But then yeah, honestly, like I wouldn't be able to do like half of the gastronomy things I'm able to, or what is considered gastronomy, without learning how to do the basics, how to make a basic puree, how to make a hollandaise. Um, I like he didn't tell me that. I just kind of figured out that like you can't really push the boundary of something unless you actually understand what makes it work. So unless you actually kind of get why the technique works and why it's why certain things are holding together,
That's very well
it's
said.
it's it's really hard to push a boundary, right? Like even today,
That is, yeah.
um, with what I'm doing with what I'm trying to like do for my own like brand is, you know, I wouldn't know how to do fermentation if it wasn't for reading Red Zeppi's like Chef Red Zeppi's book. Fermentation really good.
Sorry, Earl,
That,
you cut out there for a second. If you could
oh,
repeat that.
which
With reading Rene Redzepi's book on
oh
fermentation.
yeah ever since quarantine, essentially I with the covering the basics part of learning the basics first before you push it, I had to read Chef Redzepi's book multiple times to kind of get the basics of fermentation and kind of understand why his ratios work, why does it. I think that's if there's something else ask me like how do you kind of take your step further is understanding what the recipe is rather than just like doing it was one of the big things that Lux taught me too. Again, like what can I say? Like I even to this day I still thank Chef Matt Phillips for like teaching me how to do the basics and reminding me constantly because I'm a knucklehead that I should learn how to do the basics.
We
Yeah,
definitely
and then
all can relate to that.
exactly 100%, and that's what the awesome thing about this podcast is. Like, we've all started our journeys at different places, but kind of went through the same you know hurdles, so to speak, to kind of arise and become who we are. And I think a great true fact that you just said is that you had to read Rene Redzepi's book on fermentation a couple times. I think that is a very, very important point, because the first like 20 pages is like basically just a background getting you ready about like all of this. And then I had to reread that multiple times. And then once I got really interested in the kombucha chapter, and like, what's kombucha is great. We're drinking it at the store, but like, how do we take it further, and what's actually happening?
Yep.
And it gets very, very, very detailed, and it's hard to understand those details unless, one, you've put in repetition, you've kind of seen this process happen, and then the other one is to be very detailed and precise so you get the same results. So I definitely, it's a very hard read, but very, very important read, along with one of the things that I always recommend to any chef at any age or any stage in his career is the French Laundry Cookbook.
Yes. Actually, I started reading. Well, the first book I ever bought that was fine dining that got me thinking like what's beyond the food that what we usually serve was 11 Madison Park. A knife store in Edmonton popped up, in the store here, and they had that book, and I was like, kind of combing through it, and I was like, I've never seen food like this before, especially from like the stuff that he was making then. Or like the one thing that like still to this day is on my head is like the quail with the Vativan granola, and I'm like, Chef Hum just served like a quail and granola as a dish, and it's like when you read it, you're like, I don't get it, and you read it again, you're like, oh, that's a lot of flavor in like one dish, and like that's kind of what opened me up to like now I have this army of books that I gotta move whenever I move houses, and it's fun.
Yes, I've had to dealt with that pain.
Yeah, I didn't go to culinary school, right? So yeah, it was just learning from the chefs, learning from the books, watching shows. For some reason, I watch a show and it's a lot. The information sits in a lot more than just like going to school would be. I would say, um,
And then
Mind
I
of a
think that
Chef.
goes with with chefs being very visual learners. And I
Yeah,
think some of the best ones are the ones that can do both, but obviously we learn visually much faster. And it's entertainment at the end of the day, so they make it exciting for anybody to watch, especially if you can, like I watch Triple G or Triple D all the time.
oh.
And
I think we all do. To be honest, that's like a
It's a
guilty.
guilty pleasure.
it's a
Yeah.
guilty pleasure, but like,
Nobody will admit it, but we've definitely watched it.
Oh,
there's
uh,
recipes and things that only as somebody who's experienced can pick up those little nuances of like, they're still making food. Everybody's making food, no matter if you're on Triple G or you're at Alinea. You're still buying in celery whole and you're transforming it. So just little nuances and like cool spices, and they do cover like a wide range of cuisine. So I think it's a great source
They
of,
cover everything.
yeah, great source for education for culinary purposes.
Oh,
I
definitely.
learned.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. I was just on that
Sorry guys, we're a little
different ingredients, and I
laggy.
think it's important that we as chefs are always like keeping our minds open for different ingredients and such. I learned about this basil the other night called Tulsi basil, which is also called holy basil in parts of India, I believe. But it has like all these medicinal purposes, but it also is like this crazy like minty grapefruit basil sort of like flavor all in one,
Oh,
and it sort of looks like basil and like spearmint, like a hybrid plant between that. But I had never heard of it before, and just randomly, I was in a conversation with someone, and you always got to keep your mind open. You never know who's gonna, share with you some wisdom on this new ingredient or technique that is maybe a lost art.
Love it.
Well, chef,
I've never had holy basil as a food,
yeah,
but I've had it as like a health supplement for anti-stress. So that's interesting though. Like I didn't know that was the flavor profile of it.
yeah, it was a definitely interesting experience. But back to your sort of story, chef. So you told us, about you were at Walk Walk, and then you left there and went to Joey's, and then after Joey's, you were at Lux. What was
Yep.
that experience like at Lux? What were you doing? What was your day to day?
Um, I did pretty much all the positions there. Honestly, that's kind of like when like I said, like it was the place where I learned a lot, and it was like the forge essentially. It was the place that made me realize that like holding a title doesn't mean anything if I can't really cook. To me, like actually, what I realized was it's a little bit embarrassing to say that I've had executive chef title, but I can't bake or make mayo, right? So my day to day was I started there. I was garbage, so everything was scratch, or at least everything that we had space for was scratch, um, except for the bread, just because we didn't have space to make it. But mayo we made in house. The beef that we got because we were a steakhouse, we had to like cut in house. Um, it was the first restaurant that was everything was scratch made, and made me feel like I don't want to say a kid again, but like it made me feel like rejuvenated. Like oh, like I've never actually touched the food that I cooked before. At corporate restaurants, everything comes pre-cut because like it's not a knock on them. It's just they deal with so
Cost
much
control.
volume.
Yeah,
Yeah, and volume, right? Like to do like the hands-on scratch making on that volume, you would need like an army of just preppers, like just constantly prepping. So, for the first time in my life, I was making ice cream, I was making sorbet, I was making sauces. And then once I kind of got more comfortable and I proved to chef that like, I got my station under pat, even with like inventory and controlling like your product, the basics. Um, I got moved to pans. Pans was a nightmare, but not because it was bad, but because that was a station that like pushed you to get ready to be in grill. Um,
And by
it
pan,
was
so is that like saute station?
yeah, it's a saute. Sorry, we just call it pens, but it's
I
just
love it. I love learning new
yeah,
things.
yeah.
um, yeah, it was everything was even more scratch in like the saute station and pan station. It was your sauces you had to make, the velouté you had to make like when you get it. We can make it en masse, obviously, but lobster shells to make velouté in. Essentially, like you got to cook your own pasta and check it. You got to cut all of your fresh cuts every day. And then sometimes account that chef is doing a dinner and he's just going to grab your shells. And then if you're out of shells, you just get in trouble. So you just make extra shallots.
The good old pint of deli of shallots going through every station before service,
Oh,
so everybody's set.
no, it was like he would have a dinner and then he would just be like, grab a handful and then put it in his pan. You're just like, oh, okay. And he's like, you forgot about chef tax. And I'm like, fuck. I
Chef
just,
tax. I like it. Chef
yeah. And
tax.
then, all the potato work. We used to serve like these spiralized fried potatoes and every single dish that we sent for like steaks. And so like you had to make like 3 hotel pans of that.
Sorry guys, we're getting a little
Included human
getting a little lag
turkey
here.
mash, making
I
sure you
missed
have
that
soup.
last part. Sorry, Chef Earl. I think my
Oh, so that's all
snowstorm
good.
here is lagging a little bit, so I don't want to miss that good juicy stuff.
It could also be on my end. Oh, it's all good. Yeah, like I said, like I was saying, a lot of potato work. Again, it's a lot of hands-on, right? Although there's like 4 potato dishes every day, you're just like, okay, I got to make fries. I also got to make this, and I also got to make that. Thankfully, my dishwasher is like a god of like speed. He's this like, he's an East Indian man named Dilbar. Uh, I don't know how he does it. He comes in, dish pit crashed, catches it up in 30 minutes, comes over to my station and be like, Chef, do you need help with anything? And I'm like, yes, I'm crashing. And he's like, okay, I deal with your potatoes. And he just like, we'll spend an hour. And he's like, okay, everything done. You're like, you're doing the job better than me. Like, what?
Right,
That's
someone
um,
get this
awesome,
guy a
sir.
promotion.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, and I love Dilbar. In the wintertime when we used to work together, he would come after work and he'd be like, do you guys want medicine? And we go, what's medicine? And he like goes in the change room, comes back with like these two suspicious looking cups of coffee, and then you open it and it just smells like whiskey. It's like 10% coffee, 90% whiskey, I swear. And then, but you just had a long day, so you're off work, you're like, whatever, sure.
Medicine it is.
Yeah. And then yeah, Lux was a wild time. It was fun. I did the night and the day side, so like both sides. Inventory, event planning because we did catering too. Uh, yeah, I try to do everything that I possibly can at work. Um, but then yeah, eventually it kind of came time to move on. So I tried to look for a restaurant that I've never done before. And so I went to Madison's Grill here in Edmonton.
So
Okay.
those that aren't as familiar with Canada's layout, Edmonton is sort of pretty far north, no?
Now, we're like bordering on Montana.
Oh, okay. So
I'm in
very
the Western
west.
Prairies. Yeah, it's like 2 provinces to the left of, or 2 provinces to the right of Vancouver.
Got you.
If you see like in our map, there's a province that looks like like just like a rectangle. It's that province beside it that doesn't look like a rectangle.
There you
We,
go.
we we got it. Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Do you guys have like a lot of visitors and tourists from Montana and stuff like that?
I think all over the world, our mountains are pretty famous, right? So we're where the Rockies are. So like Banff, Jasper, Camrose, pretty much everything outside of Edmonton gets the mountains.
It's pretty cool. And
So
then would you say your town is touristy or driven by
um,
local
Edmonton is touristy in the summer. We are like the city of festivals. So in the summer, you get the Fringe, you get Heritage, you get whatever festival kind of comes into town. Um, so yeah, summer days for Edmonton is like busy time for restaurants, especially if you're in those areas.
Yeah, and festivals bring in, festivals I think make a great foodie city or, a great food city because they bring in, all the small little venues and shops that do their own little spin-offs of everything and that kind of, promotes the creativity.
Oh yeah, before COVID, like our local restaurants that were opening here were like, well, I wouldn't say all, but like a lot of the restaurants that were opening were like individually owned, like stores that were doing one-off things. Like I said, my mentor chef Matt Phillips, he's got his own restaurant now, and he's only doing fried chicken. So
That's probably a big change from what was he doing just whole table service.
Oh yeah, he was my executive chef, right? So
Yeah.
um, but like as long as I've known him, that's been his dream. He wanted to call it Matt's Chicken Shack. He wanted to just the guy is a he's probably one of the coolest guys I probably have to work for. The man breathes music. He loves old school hip hop. He loves D&B. Uh, and like he let us play music on the kitchen. Like he was the one that introduced me to Song Challenge Saturdays, which I honestly don't know why we play. It just sounds like mental torture when you think about it. But I mean, like a little bit never.
Morale
But
booster.
huh?
Is that a morale booster for the
In
kitchen?
some way, yeah. Except for the guy who has to do the punishment.
Walk us through what is this song challenge Saturday?
Song challenge Saturdays are we take a busy Saturday because obviously that's when you're supposed to do mental torture is when you're already stressed out. Um, you take one song. It doesn't have to be particular any song or even annoying. You take one song and you play that one song repeatedly for the whole day until someone turns it off, and whoever turns it off has to do a punishment that's been agreed upon before starting said challenge.
Wow.
What are some of the best songs that have been played on repeat?
Uh, we did everything was awesome. I think the one that didn't last because oh no, it lasted for like a day and a half. It's a really old song. It's do you guys remember Selfie?
Oh, but first, let me take a selfie.
Yeah, that one. So during our Mother's Day prep, we played that song for at least I'm pretty sure it was almost 2 days, just straight. It was still we left prep and service. We came back the next day in the morning to do Mother's Day, and it was still playing.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Like I failed on the song Royals by Lord. I just the beat count just like it just irritates me because it's so awkward. It's like
Right.
do 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 do, and it's like I just like I can't like I'm trying to think and it's making me skip thinking and I'm just like I can't do this. And I turned it off and I didn't realize that the punishment was like this pint glass. They didn't tell me at the time, but it was filled and it's got rimmed and I was like, oh, it's just probably some disgusting cocktail they made up at the bar. I drank it, and as soon as the liquid touched my tongue, I was like, "This is not alcohol, and this is not liquid. It's like clarified pork fat with a little bit of lemon juice in the bottom, and like rimmed with some salt for like flavor." And I was like, "I gotta drink it." They're like, "Well, you don't have to drink all of it." And I was like, "Well, I gotta do the punishment, right?" So I downed that, but I was out of commission for like half a day because I was just in the bathroom.
Goodness. A
Yeah, that
pint of
that
clarified pork fat.
that will lubricate the insides quite
Oh,
well.
I was very healthy for like a good week and a half.
But that's like one of the I love hearing all these stories because that builds the team, right? That
Oh
builds
yeah,
the everybody on the same page doing the same thing because none of that fun stuff can exist unless you guys can get through a successful
yep.
service.
And like Chef is one of the first people to stop music as soon as sees us kind of going disorganized, right? Which happens sometimes, but like if he ever sees us kind of going veering towards going long or not really focusing, he stops the music and he goes, "Hey guys, like no music if you guys can't figure it out," which I think is fair, you know.
Definitely.
Kitchens,
And we as chefs like to get carried away.
yeah, it
So
happens.
one guy
Um,
has to top the other guy's joke and then it just snowballs and then
oh, it
Everyone's in
just
30 minutes before service, nothing's up.
yeah, no, I like I said, like so it's been kind of weird because every restaurant I've gone to after Lux has been kind of like their own separate journey. Like I said, after I left Lux, I went more fine dining. I tried to, anyways. It's this boutique restaurant called Madison. It's in a boutique hotel, so like obviously rich, very rich clientele that can afford tasting menus and like expensive wine. I loved it because like what is food cost in a hotel, I guess. So um, yeah, that's where I started doing tasting menus, doing like small plates. Started reading more like fine dining books, kind of trying to see what Edmonton will buy. As much as a futon as it was turning, it's still kind of not quite there yet because it's just kind of being influenced by what it's seeing in the media for like food. But yeah, medicine was fun. It was fun and not because they don't have a break between tasting menu and regular menu. So you'll be like getting crushed by regular menu, and then somebody will order like the 8 course, and you're like, I have like 7 sticks on the go plus like 8 chicken breasts. Like, what am I supposed to think of your first course now? Like, what the hell? And so like, but it was good mental exercise, right? Like, what dish can I come up with? And the spur of the moment, you gotta make a sauce. It can't be the same thing you did last time. It's gotta be like something original. But you have the entire freezer days.
I can definitely attest to having, a chef's table at a couple of places I worked at, or having a tasting menu, and you're in the middle of regular dinner service, and all of a sudden, five top tasting, six top tasting. It's it's definitely a thing of beauty once you get all those tickets out, and you're like, yeah, I did do that.
Yeah, at the moment, all you can think about is a bunch of swear words probably, and just like cursing the day you chose to go in this industry. Because like, there's been days where I'm just like, man, if I just actually pay attention in school and like just try my hardest in assignments, could I just be like an engineer sitting on my like pool of money right now? And then you think about it and you're like, but that would be a boring life. What's not fun about like living paycheck to paycheck?
Exactly.
And then I guarantee there's an engineer sitting on a pile of money going, man, this is all cool and fun, but I don't even know how to make mayonnaise.
I was gonna say it's probably like a rich athlete there that's like, man, I really like my money and all, but I wish I could just be struggling. I don't think that actually exists, to be honest.
We all wanted to, we all want to think that it does.
I think the underlying key there is like that struggle as chefs is something we seek out. Like we all have that personality type where we do enjoy the struggle of it, and we do enjoy that feeling of overcoming such
Yeah,
like where I mean we're thrown with crazy obstacles every single day. There's something else going on. There's some sort of fire we have to put out. It's never the same thing. And I think a person who strives in that, who genuinely like looks forward to that, is qualities of a great chef, and we're all sort of drawn to that same energy.
yeah, and I guess like, I always kind of tell people that I train this is like, it's the best and worst part of our industry, right? It's that like a lot of us are perfectionists, a lot of us are pursuers of like we all have the same mindset where we think, okay, cool, I did this, but how can I do it better tomorrow? Or like, the next day you come in, you're like, okay, I did that, but then how do I make that faster? Like you just go for the next level, right? And I think that's the best part, but also like I can understand, you know, it's hard when you don't achieve those kind of goals or there's those milestones you put yourself. Um, but I think at the end of the day, people need to remember, especially if they're starting out, that like you're gonna have more of those days where you're not gonna accomplish a milestone right away, but like it's every failure is a lesson, right? Like when you like even as small as like, oh, I burned something, what do you learn from that? Like, okay, I probably should be watching what I'm cooking, right? And like I think those little lessons you pick up from trying different settings, putting yourself in that situation where you have to reset back to zero over and over again, gave me like a really good sense of how to adapt to situations. And like, for cooks that were doing kind of the same path that we all took, I think a lot can be said, like we said before, like on our adaptation, right? We're able to take a setting and go, okay, well, what's around us? How can we make this work?
100%.
Yeah, I think it's been said time and time again, but it goes back to that idea of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And it doesn't just happen overnight. It's not like, not everyone it comes natural to. It is uncomfortable, to be uncomfortable. That's why you have that unease and that feeling. But if you do stay comfortable for too long, you start to sort of coast, and that growth doesn't happen, and that mediocrity that we were talking about starts to sort of take in, and you don't, that hunger slowly fades away, and then people start to feel that absolute distress for the industry. And it really is that continued uncomfortness that I think a lot of us industry professionals sort of look for and thrive for, whatever personality trait we all share.
Be sure quite a actually it's kind of weird, right? Like we're all very different people, like so to speak, but like when it comes to like in the kitchen and in the industry, I feel a lot more similarities even to people that aren't necessarily like similar to me, but like come service time, come work time, we're all on the same page. We all have the same mission, I guess, right? Um, but yeah, it's why I really like this program because like if it's aiming to build a community, and coming here, I was very intimidated because like again, Jeremiah, it's like oh like you know we all we all came from some sort of like basic like training. We all came from some basic work
Yeah.
before.
Do you guys hear that?
Yeah, there's a cat.
That's
There
my
you go.
kid,
Yeah.
my cat asking for love and affection.
Yeah, I
Just
put my
trying to
dogs
steal the show.
downstairs.
So my apartment is so old that the doors stop shutting closed, so the cat can just get in any room that she wants. So
I
my
put
my
a
apologies for
door.
that.
Oh, it's all good. I put a door in my kitchen just to get the dogs out while I'm trying to cook.
There you go. Well, no, Chef
um,
Earl, I think you're right. I think, like you said, you hit it on the nail. We all are different. We all have different starts and, different finishing points and different accolades, but we do share that same, common bond. And Chef Jeremiah Tower, he shared the same sentiments, who was to know that he went to architect school, is going to be this great architect. He just liked cooking in his off time, for his college friends. And then all of a sudden, boom, he had this passion for it and he ran with it, and look where it got him. And so I think it's important, especially for all of our viewers and followers, and especially with the times now and the financial commitment that you know culinary school is. Time and time again you hear from chefs, save your money, go work, see if that's what you want to do. If it is what you want to do, later on down the road you can invest that money into yourself. But to shell out 60 grand and go work for $12 an hour, it
yeah.
just, you gotta have that want first. So I
I want
definitely
to
agree
kind
with
of
you on that.
contradict your point there, Doug, because I think if before you
Let's
spend
hear it.
$60,000, I think you should go and knock on some doors and hit the dish
Stage.
pit and work as a prep cook, work as a commis, work your way up. But I think if you are there's a lot of chefs and a lot of industries, especially if you're going for a high end paying corporate job. I think that a good bachelor's in culinary school and
Or business.
utilizing that culinary school and milking it for everything it's got, every single program, every single network thing that you can do, every single recommendation. I think that's what I regret the most about culinary school, is not taking advantage of everything, because there is a lot. And then we're college kids and we want to go get high after class, and we don't care about that little volunteering thing that's might help us 6 years from now, because we're thinking about, okay, I got class today, and you kind of take it as school versus a real learning tool and utilizing it to your best. So if you are going to spend 60,000, just know that this is exactly what you want, and
Definitely.
have goals to where this is going to lead to.
I think that's right. I think it's like I never went to school myself. Um, I just don't really want to go to school in Edmonton. Like if I were to go to school, I'd probably like go to a school in the U.S. But the school here is pretty well known. It's the NATE program. But I think it's dependent, right? Like some people might need schools to kind of get their confidence in the basics and kind of just learn, the terminology in the industry. I mean, you could also do that by just working, but some people, like you said before, Doug, like we all kind of learn. We're all mostly visual, but some people learn more from books and stuff. I'm definitely a little bit of both. Um, but for me, like school hasn't really been a big hurdle. But like Truffle Boy says, like the one thing I do wish that I would have gone to school for was the connections. Um, you know, I think if you are gonna go to school, I think yeah, the Truffle Boy is right that you should pull every single possible advantage you can get from it. Which in culinary schools that are bigger, is a lot. You get to learn. You get to talk to the chefs that are guesting sometimes. You get to just have the network of like suppliers and stuff, right? Um, but is it really kind of necessary? Like, I guess I'm really the bad person to kind of comment on that because I never went to school, so I'm biased. But like, I have heard a lot of chefs who have gone to school that are just like it's like it was okay or like it wasn't really worth their time. But again, I guess it's dependent, right? Like, what might work for me or you isn't going to work for
Yeah.
someone starting over. Sometimes.
No, I think that's a great point, and kind of like what Vlad said, and it's like what out of the industry, because I think Vlad's right. If you're trying to get a corporate culinary director or corporate manager of operations, they're probably looking for someone with a college degree. But if that's not your style, if you don't want to do that corporate thing, you want to work in a chef restaurant, with chef owner and blah blah blah. The chances that someone's going to turn you away because you don't have an associate's or a bachelor's is probably a lot less. So I agree with your sentiments. It depends on what you want out of it, but
How
I
much
think
are
we
you willing
all
to put in, right? Because
right.
how many
Yeah,
books are you willing to read? Because that's the same kind of steps that you know but you're reading a lot more. I've learned through my own personal thing that when I go doing research versus when I get it in a class, you learn a lot more extra fluff around that, so you're more rounded versus like direct, like this is the
yeah,
five mother sauces, this is the only steaks, this. So once you start learning about things that culinary school doesn't really have time to really go into detail, and I think these fine dining establishments kind of went and researched it on themselves and bringing this product in and educating the cooks, the front of the house, even the dishwashers getting educated on all this, product that's coming in and getting turned in the restaurant.
oh yeah. Books are definitely, but like yeah, you're right in that. I think this industry is definitely you get what you put in, you get what you're willing to give. I guess sometimes it's not doesn't seem like it just because like there's going to be restaurateurs that will take advantage of you just because you could just be
Can
like a chef seeking your first like position. But for the most part, like this industry has never given me more or less than what I've actually put into it, right? So you know I I love it and I hate it at the same time. For that, I love it because like it's the one of the few industries where you can literally manifest your own destiny. You know, there are ways to like make what you want come true, but it's
that's all.
definitely gonna be like tooth and nail, like hard off the bat.
I
Um,
I agree with that. I like that sentiment. I think it's something that drew me to the industry is that idea that hard work does pay off in this industry. You just got to keep your eyes open to what that looks like.
yep, and sometimes it doesn't, and that's just fine. It's still an experience, right?
Yep,
Right.
Um,
absolutely.
And Ken, I want to jump off your uh last what we just spoke about, and see, after all that hard work, after all that sacrifice, where are you, now? How has, COVID affected you? How is that like? How, how, what are you doing to stay positive? And then,
um,
how's life, leading up to COVID, during
yeah.
COVID, and then now that we're kind of slowly but surely getting
So
out of this,
hopefully, right, soon.
hopefully, yes.
Um, well, it's actually kind of interesting because it's been good and bad. So like, I guess I should start pre-COVID. I landed in a restaurant that I really loved, and I still love to this time. Like, it's called Dusk, which is a short form for Drunken Ox and Sober Cat. It was a concept of two restaurateurs here that was half cafe and half steakhouse. I've never heard of it, so like I was like, oh, that's a really interesting concept. Let's jump in. Um, More than the food that I was able to do there, it was also a change of leadership for me. It was like a metamorphosis almost. It was slow, for sure, and like a lot of people probably are, you know, probably made a lot of people mad at the times. But um, it's when I realized that the old school of leading a kitchen isn't gonna work anymore. Um, it's a brave new world out there where, at least I like to think so. Where cooks and the hierarchy is very, I don't want to say gone or non-existent, but like it's a little bit less stiff nowadays. You know, and I don't mind that. To be honest, I like this new wave of like leadership more, where it's more.
One
It
team,
feels like
one dream.
Yeah, it feels more like collaboration than calling your brigade, right? It feels more like you take in some ideas, and then you as the head still has to kind of be the filter, obviously, but like letting letting maybe your newer staff something their ideas. Yeah, like the one team, one dream kind of thing, right? Um, DOS was also the first place where I started kind of. I know this can't sound bad. It's not as bad as it sounds, but like it's when I started kind of looking at things from the front of house perspective. I feel like a lot of the stigma I want to say on our industry is that how the back of house treats the front of house, and that kind of like old, actually still to this day existent roles. Dots was the first time that I was like, okay, well, what if we just included front of house in one of our teams too, right? Um, but yeah, that was what I was doing pre-COVID. It was great. We were like upper, not quite fine dining, but like a step below. We did events. I had the good fortunes of cooking for Friends of Lafroy, uh, a lot of the breweries here, and like Jim Barry wines. And then COVID hit, which is great. Um, it was rough. Had to lay off a lot of my employees. That was tough seeing. Like it wasn't me that had to lay them off because the GM had to, and the owner, but like seeing all these people who may or may not have, like most likely may have needed the job. I had a pretty young staff, so um, losing their work, not really knowing what to do, kind of getting scared because like at the time when we heard about COVID, it was just I think Edmonton didn't really have any cases yet. Um, and then restrictions happened. We never really got a full lockdown. It was like hard restrictions. That was rough because I was working like day and night shifts, like almost 6, 7 days a week, like trying to come up with things that we can sell to the store to keep it going. Uh, Daily meetings, you're seeing the stress in your owners' faces, you're seeing the stress in your GM's face, and like you can only do so much to try to like sell things, but like if it's not selling and people aren't buying, then
Right.
you so that was rough, but we kind of trudged along until as far as we can, so that people who could get paid could still get paid without kind of you know putting them out. February was kind of when eventually though we couldn't really keep up anymore, and I was like laid off from that job around I say June, and then I picked up June. And then I picked up a like a temporary job. Um, as for COVID, Rice, what am I doing right now? Um, well, after getting laid off from that temporary job, I kind of went through like a little bit of a actually not a little bit of a phase, a lot bit of a phase. Um, it's crushing, right? Like a lot of my identity and a lot of my worth is tied to what I do in the kitchen, my work, right? And that might not be the healthiest way of looking at it, but it's just the reality of it, right? Like I pride myself in my work. I really like what I do. I chose it for a reason, and the fact that now that I can't do it, seeing the industry around me that's just on the rise, like almost dying again, with a bunch of restaurants already having to close. I guess I should say that I have it better than most like the owners, because at least I'm not worried about my business. But like I still love this industry. Like so, not being able to do it kind of sent me to like not like a spiral a little bit.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I definitely felt the same thing getting, furloughed from Disney. I was like, what am I going to do? You spend 80, 80 hours a week in a location, every day, that's what the mindset is. And even when you're not there, you're thinking about it. And now next morning, you don't think about it. It's not there. All of that time and energy that you put into that, that you've always put into that day after day after day, now that time and energy is just stagnant. And you're like, what do I do with all this time, with all this energy, all this passion? How do I, create something else? How do I, transfer that into something healthy?
Yeah, it's like a loss of purpose, right? And then like again, that might not be the healthiest way to put it, but for me, and I think
It's
for a
the
lot of people
reality.
who are creators and
Right.
like love what they're doing, that's you, right? So for me, not being able to do that, like yeah, I was just unmotivated for like 3 months. Like I just didn't want. Like I pretty much lived a cycle of wake up, go get stoned, go play video games, and then stay up late. And I just didn't feel like cooking because like I was like, what's the point? Like, is there even going to be an industry I come back to? I had a girlfriend here and there, but like I never didn't really experiment, didn't read, didn't really feel like doing anything culinary wise. Um, and then I was kind of just like experimenting. Like this producer in Edmonton, well outside of Edmonton, kind of tapped me and he's like, "Hey, like I'm trying to find chefs who would do like recipes for me, or like can you do a dish for me to kind of feature my product, which are like Haskap berries, which are like they're like blueberries but like longer and they taste a lot more tart and a lot more fibrous. They only like live in like super cold regions. And I was like I wasn't sure, but I was like, you know what, like I haven't been doing anything. Let's do something just to kind of say I'm doing something,
You
right?
say
It's
Saskatoon berries?
Haskap,
Hascat.
yeah. Uh, you see everybody doing something, and you're like, crap, am I really not doing anything? Um, so I did that, and then I kind of just jogged it. I was like, you know what, like, uh, what jogged me for me was I finally have the free time that we've all been asking for, right? We've all been like, man, I wish I had more free time. And I came to the realization that like I've moped for about 3 months. I do have a job prospect on the line, but it's not open yet. I was like, let's just cook and see what I can come up with, right? Um, and then for me, like I used to do competitions. Well, but competitions existed, I guess. I did the one in Canadian Food Championships, and as this guys posted, like, I won that. So for me, like, I'm a very confident chef, but like, a lot of my anxiety comes from like imposter syndrome, if that makes sense.
Oh, I
Like,
definitely understand that.
so I kind of looked inward. I didn't want to just aimlessly cook because I'm on EI, so I don't want to waste any money. And I got to keep my budget pretty strict. So what I was like, well, what is the root cause that I can work on here? That's not just like I'm cooking a bunch of things, right? So I kind of just confronted a bunch of things that I've been pushing back because I've been working a lot before. So where is my anxiety coming from? Why is it that when I'm on media, like I told you guys, like why am I nervous, right? Part of that was talking to a PR like professional, a professional PR person that kind of was addressing this to me. And part of it is like get that imposter syndrome, but it comes from because I didn't go to school. I feel very nervous about my fundamentals and my basics, and so that's what I've been addressing. So whenever I cook for my girlfriend, I will dice an onion as best as I can. Every day I try to cook just to kind of do the basics, the fundamentals. Baking was my really big weakness for a long time. I've been conquering that. I've been baking just random things that I could think of, whatever's in the house that I can cook into like, something. And as well, I've been working on launching my own brand so I can sell like some ferments and some jams and some chutneys.
It sounds amazing, and it sounds like you got through that low point, and everything's picking back up, and you're adding fuel to the fire, with each recipe and each time you keep honing your skills.
It's like I don't want to say I'm not one of those guys that's going to come to the station and be like, "Oh, I'm very inspirational," because it's not. Like this is after 3 months of moping. Everybody kind of has to remember, and it comes back every now and then. Like I'm only human, so like at
Definitely.
this time in our industry is really rough for like everybody in the world right now. Um,
I think
so
I really appreciate you sharing that aspect of it. And I definitely, very similar feelings with, what I'm going through in my career right now is when we don't always talk about, you know, the ugly side, the mental health side, and
Yeah.
it's super, super deflating when something that you spend so much time and energy doing just seems hopeless. And
Yeah.
how do you come back from that? How do you recognize that and then fix that? And that's really awesome that you were able to see that and, you know, put action steps towards it, you know?
Well, it's definitely not like a one man. Like it was definitely like, luckily I do have a good support network of like both my girlfriend and my sisters and like, some friends that I do have in the industry where I was able to kind of just like talk to them and like, I if anything else, the one thing I kind of want whoever's listening to kind of pull from that what I said was, just because you're seeing everybody doing all these like new DIY or crafts, like not on that if you're doing the core really good on you, right? But like, it's just as important to kind of take that time to kind of just down and mope and just, just feel yourself and just kind of, especially for us chefs who, on the daily we blaze through like our feelings. We know that you can't really bring your feelings to the floor. You can't really, you're always moving, you're always
Right.
hustling and bustling.
Your life stays outside the door pretty
Yeah,
much. I
I,
mean,
I think it's definitely important that there's a place where we can say like, hey man, like I'm just not doing well right now. And then I think there's definitely like there should be a allowance for people to just be like, you know what, I just want to sit down and do not do anything for like 2 weeks or something. So I think that's part of it, right? Some
well,
people
and
might
I
call it.
think that the being a chef aspect of always, trying to drive the envelope and never being happy, with any of your results, like that also, when you're like trying to do nothing, that, there's a second chef inside, there's a second chef mind in there saying, yo, come on, let's go, what are you doing? And then you're like, dude, I am burnt out. Leave me alone.
Yeah, that was honestly the truth of the matter. Like before I actually moved, like during COVID, because I'm insane. Um, I during COVID when I was working still, it was, I couldn't think. You try to think, but your brain is so tired from like not only working long hours but stressed out because you know the realities of your numbers and you see what the reality of what's happening around you. It's a lot. So you're like, for me anyways, like when I was working, I couldn't think. Like my mind felt super fuzzy. You wake up, you're still tired. You go to bed, you're not exhausted because that makes sense, right? Um, so like, as bad as it sounds, and the time off has been good and bad. It's been bad because like I'd rather be working, obviously, but it's good because I've been able to confront a lot of what's been bugging me, and it's not solved. Obviously, it's a work in progress, but like it's given me that downtime to kind of reset my brain and being like, okay, it's time to like actually address some of the things that are bugging me essentially. And then like I said, like it's a good thing that I have a support system because honestly, my girlfriend's one of the people that were pushing me to do my store. Um, like I said, imposter syndrome makes it kind of awkward, anxious for me to just kind of like put myself out there because it's like, you know, even when you guys wrote award, like I'm just gonna be honest, like when you guys put award winning, I was like, oh, like I don't know if I like that label. And then I thought about it and I was like, you know what? Technically, it did win an award.
Yeah,
It
you
is a
won an
big
award.
investment.
You're award
Yeah, I
winning.
was like,
Yeah.
you know what? That's fair. You know what? I should just own that because it's actually true. And then so yeah, like
Exactly.
you know, I'm actually working on launching junk food. Is what I called my online store, I guess.
I love
There's
that.
nothing on. There's nothing on there yet. I just started it like last week because I finally just finished the menu for it. Um, but I'm really happy because it's a concept that like I like and I love. It can tie it back to my Filipino roots. It's great. It's junk food YAG because somebody took the junk food only like name on Instagram, so I gotta put the YEG on there.
There you go.
Um, but yeah, like that's been my project for the last like almost month now. I was making donuts like a month ago, trying to make like Filipino inspired donuts. Um, right now I can't show you because it's actually in the kitchen and it's a mess right now because I just bought a bunch of stuff to experiment on. But I'm trying to make Filipino banana ketchup. But instead of just like pureeing it or like roasting it like everybody else has done, I'm trying it with ferment because I want the bananas to like melt, like kind of be very mushy and melt almost. So there's no solid chunks, and I want to see like what the flavor of fermented banana would taste like on like a sauce.
Huh.
Uh, I got some calamansi fruit preserving and fermenting as well. I got a couple of sweet potatoes fermenting right now. I just want to experiment on stuff because I have all this free time now. Like, I might as well make use of it, right? So,
And that's amazing that you are making use of it. And you know, it's good to stay busy as much as we all love to take a moment and step back, which is great to do. I think that, it's hard to pick back up and start where you left off. And I think that's kind of the scariest thing. A lot of chefs, went off, and it's going to be very, very hard to pick things, where we left them back when this whole thing started. And people are going to need to be, retrained and hone your skills back in. And that all takes, time and effort and a lot of, a lot
well,
of hustle to get that thing rolling again.
I think realistically, like even post COVID, we'd be living in a brand new industry at this point. A lot of things have changed. Plus, like I would like to think a lot of more chefs are more aware of the food chain right now and like how fragile it actually is, and like how a bigger. And I'm hoping right that there's more focus on sustainability and like actually sourcing your product from an ethical source kind of thing.
So
Um,
chef awareness.
yeah, I mean, the biggest truth is that our industry is one of the biggest, not only consumers but wasters of food, right? We try our best not to waste food, but in the day, like we can't force feed people like food they're not gonna want to finish,
Right, scraps
or
and
like we can't serve people rotten food, right? So like it happens, but like I don't know. I've always been a big believer that our food chain is definitely very fragile. Um, I hope that COVID has kind of highlighted that a little bit, where it's like, maybe we shouldn't be serving 64-ounce steaks anymore. Like, um, but yeah, that's what I've been doing. And but like you said, like I do hope that some normalcy returns because I really want to do event pop-ups again. Um, you know, prior to COVID, I was part of a Filipino pop-up that we were trying in Edmonton to kind of raise awareness for for our ethnic food, right? So, I hope that we can start doing that again because I really miss doing that.
the events are always fun because you get to interact and network and meet a lot of people, and then you get to be creative. And
Well, yeah, for us it just meant a lot because we were, I want to say, six very proud Filipino chefs, and most of us have different varying experiences with the Philippines. Like I grew up in it. The other two didn't really, but like they know the culture from their parents. Um, but yeah, it was fun. It was pushing Filipino food, introducing people to Filipino food, and just having fun with it, telling people our stories, and like kind of making them more familiar with. The best way you tell a Filipino story is through their food as well. Is what I'm gonna say about that.
what were some of your big stars, and what were the fan favorites?
The for the event.
Yes,
Oh,
for the pop up, for
um,
the Filipino pop up.
honestly, like Yellow, which is like the company that joins us, is one of the bigger hits. She is a whiz with pastry and desserts. Um, I'm even a big fan of their pastries and desserts, where like I try to sneak one every time we have an event. Um, I think for the most part, people have loved what we've been serving. Like there hasn't been a complaint. As for favorite, I think it's kind of a personal thing. I'm gonna say mine just because I'm biased. Um, but there's been a very like it's not only interesting interacting with people who've never eaten the food, but also seeing their interpretations from the chefs that have joined us has been something very like amazing to watch. Like one of our youngest members, Adrian, he made this dish called lying, which is like coconut. It's a coconut stew for with like taro leaves essentially, and he made that into a ravioli with some foam. And I was like, "Oh, that's actually really creative." And he still put the shrimp paste somewhere there, and I was like, "That's really good." Like the only thing that I would say that I changed would be like, uh, we have a dish called from where I'm from, sisig, which is like essentially you take a pork face and then you put that into a hash on a sizzling platter. Bourdain had it in his episode of the Philippines.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
but what I did was I was like, well, I don't have sizzling cast iron to serve it on, but how do I still kind of get that? You know, it's a dish of texture for sure. It's definitely got pig ears, it's got the snout, it's got everything. So it's a dish of texture. It's a dish of like, you know, how do you present it? So I made it into a terrine. I made a terrine. There's usually you mix chicken liver in it. So I made a pate, made it in the middle, and then it's just a like a poached, like a fully poached egg on top. Because by the time you get to by the sizzling, you crack the egg on, mix it around, and you get like a fried egg inside. So I made like an oil poached egg on top, and then yeah, essentially it was like a breakfast hash. But that's the kind of stuff we do. Like that, we just some of us push the boundaries harder than what's probably what people are more familiar with, and then some just are really good at pulling flavors out and kind of giving you that sense of like, oh, like this is what the flavors of the Philippines are like, kind of thing.
That's
And
awesome.
that's why I like junk food as well, because I tie it with my Filipino roots. Luckily,
You
So
guys have
it's
any Jollibee out in where you're by?
hell yeah, we have two now.
Nice. What are your favorite things off there? They have really good, pastry too.
Um, I actually grew up eating Jollibee, so I like the Salisbury steak with the rice. Which, if anybody Google's that, they're gonna be like, "What the hell are you eating? You're supposed to be a chef." But honestly, burger patty, gravy, mushrooms, rice. Yes.
And it's good. I do love it, and I had to try it. On that, I think Anthony Bourdain's episode, he went out there and had
Oh yeah,
the spaghetti with I
our
think hot
legendary.
dogs or spaghetti with sauce.
Have you had the spaghetti yet?
I have not. I was just I saw it on the
Oh,
menu and I'm like, yeah, not today.
it's to me it's good just because it's my childhood, but like to a lot of people they're just like, what is going on? It's not by any means traditional in any sense of the word. It is. I'm pretty sure it's ketchup.
yeah,
Like some recipes are
yeah.
just straight ketchup and tomato sauce. Some are more refined. They put like condensed milk on it, but it's sweet. It's really sweet. It's sweet, and then we put like fake cheese on top so it melts, and some hot dogs. I know that sounds weird to a lot of people who are listening. They're like, "What? Would they sell that in a fast food place?" But like, the Philippines isn't a rich country, right? We're like considered, I would say, second or third world right now. Um, we're not a rich country. There's rich people, but like for most people that live in the country, you make do with what you can find, or you make what you can buy cheap, and that's why like you know wet markets are actually super important in the Philippines. So like a cuisine that sounds strange like that, where it's just sweet ketchup and fake cheese and hot dogs, that's actually not our fault. That's the Americans' fault for bringing that to our shores.
And that's
um,
what and you turn it into a fast food phenomenon.
well, that's what's interesting about the Philippine cuisine, right? We are, as much as people want to say Vietnam is like the ultimate fusion, we have seven different like cultures or more in our food. And if you look at our food, it's pretty much our history embedded in it, right? And that's why I'm so like prideful of like our culture. There are some things that I'd like to like comment on, but like that's getting past the food. But like for food wise, it's a culture that just cooks what it can, and then we've adapted to different cultures that have come to us. Like our original cuisine is closer to like Pacific Islander because we are, but Chinese influence, Malay influence, Arabian influence, like, and then Spaniards and the Americans, like all of the classics are still in our cuisine. Like we still serve shawarma, we still serve fried chicken and like beer, we still serve like our one of the biggest foods right now in the Philippines is Japanese cuisine, like and it's Korean cuisine. So like we're a culture that accepts like and easily like kind of adapts to different cultures. But that's kind of like good and bad because then you get lost and you kind of lose your culture a little bit if you don't focus too much, right? But that's why, like, this event for us was big because there is a generation of Filipinos living abroad, like not just Canada but United States, that have never really, experienced culture in the motherland or like, actually been there. So for us, it's really, I don't want to say interesting, but like it's really good to see like a younger crowd of Filipinos coming into our dinners and kind of, listening to our experiences because I am actually old now, so yeah, it was a great time. And like once junk food kind of takes off, I think it'll be a good time for me too to kind of keep representing Filipino culture.
I think that's a really, really neat idea. Like that you're continuing so the younger generation, this is what Filipino food, this is what it means. Because you're right, with all those different things in the water, it can definitely get muddled and kind of hard to keep focus of, what truly is, that cuisine and what does that culture represent. Really appreciate you sharing the perspective on that. I think that's really important for not only, Filipino food, but all different sort of cultural foods and, ethnic foods and people who are, you know, maybe not right next to the most authentic version of whatever they had at home, but maybe they can carry that torch and sort of bring a little bit of them to wherever they're at.
I mean, I hope so, right? Like I got inspired by Atala, Chef Atala's like approach to Brazilian cooking, where he looked at it and was like, "But we can do so much better," right? Like, and that's kind of, I don't want to say I'm near him because obviously, like, the man has like Michelin stars up the roof, and like, he's a really amazing chef. But like, I wanna do what I can for Filipino food, even if it gets to that degree, right? If anything else, if I can somehow empower some Filipino chefs to standing up and being like, no, like we can actually represent our food. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. That would be like the best possible thing I could think of to come out of this.
I agree with
Love
that.
it.
I think I try to do the same thing for Russian and Israeli food and kind of refine it. And it's also like with Russian or Israeli food, we haven't had too many um, influences that really affected us. So Russian food is pretty much you season everything with salt, pepper, and bay leaf, and
That's
Israeli
Filipino
food.
too.
So and it's crazy because you go to like Indian cuisine and French cuisine, and they add a lot more things and they cook with much more products. But again, it's all where's the location of that country and what's that history, and how have people adapted. And I think with Israeli food, we've kind of adapted the Middle Eastern food, the Moroccan food, and some Eastern European and European roots are all tied into Israel because of the migration. So there you see a lot more diversification and people, thinking outside the box. And then, with Russian food, it's finally taken off, where you see super creative, fine dining, but also it has that Russian stamp on it. And it's amazing once go on that journey and where it can take you. And we're super excited. And we're gonna be your biggest fans on junk food and be making sure to like and comment on every post as we do to all our podcasteers.
Appreciate that.
So that's what it's really all about. And I think what 2020 and 2021 really showed us is that you know you're you gotta get your friends, your family, people that are that close to support you by liking, commenting, things that are free and really don't take any
Yeah,
extra time, because that really helps you get new followers and new people, and it really builds traction and momentum,
for sure. Even if it's just for algorithms, right?
even if it's just for algorithms, because numbers they do make decisions nowadays.
That they do.
Well, Chef, we really, really appreciate you coming on with us tonight and sharing your story and kind of giving us a little background of, one, what it's like in Canada right now during COVID, but also sort of, what it's like in being, a Filipino chef and trying to push that movement, and just the story that you've gone through and the self-realizations that you've had over these last few months is definitely inspiring. And I'm sure a lot of our followers and viewers are sharing some of those same feelings, and knowing that there is an end in sight, and appreciate the journey you're going through. All of this is for a reason, and it has a purpose.
Yeah, and even if it's not apparent, you know, just like we said, you take what you get what you give, right? It's even the same thing for like the off time. I'm not really the last person to like say like, oh, you got to work hard the entire time, but like, hey, man, even the downtime, I think we all deserve it in the industry, considering we don't stop moving a lot, right? You know, understand. I think for biggest thing for me was understanding that the downtime is still part of the process, and it's important to actually have that downtime, relax your brain, and once you relax, then you figure out your next step. It doesn't have to be anything big. It can just be like I made bread, and it's still a step in the right
Definitely.
direction, right?
Well, Chef, you hinted about it a little bit earlier, but for our followers, and I'm sure yours as well, reiterate, what do you got going on? Where can our followers come and check out
Uh,
junk food?
yeah. So I have Junk Food YEG on Instagram going on right now. There's not many posts yet because we're still kind of I'm still building the content for it, obviously. But you can see her logo designed by my girlfriend. That's pretty cool. But stay tuned. I am my ferments are finally ready. I think so. It's finally time to actually start cooking. I hope people check it out. It's inspired by my childhood going into what we call sari stores, which are like variety stores. So it's not one thing, which is pretty much indicative of my like short attention span. It's a couple of different things. So check it out. Once we're ready, we'll launch what the menu for the pop up will be, and then we can go from there.
And you'll be
Other than
servicing the downtown Edmonton area?
well, I'll try to be delivering for all of downtown or for all of Edmonton.
Oh, nice.
I'm actually no longer downtown, so but yeah, I'll be trying to service as far as I can in Edmonton. Obviously, it's a one man operation, so bear with me and some limitations because I'm also like limited in money. So, but yeah, other than that, I have an upcoming job going being part of Team Broken Yoke, which is in Calgary actually, which they'll be bringing to Edmonton. So stay tuned for that as well. That is Broken Yoke. Um, Other than that, just follow me, like check out me on Instagram. I am kind of lazy at posting because social media, I'm old. Um, so I'll be posting a lot more in the next coming weeks about my collaboration with Rosie Farms and Lazuli Farms. Other than that, if you catch me in a game, I'll catch you in a game.
There you go.
Um,
That's perfect.
Yeah,
I
no,
did.
sorry. Yeah, no, I loved hearing everything, and you know, you're doing so much, and I think you deserve the praise, you deserve the pat on the back because you are doing a lot, and even though it may not seem like that, by staying, posting or whatever, it's really all about that building that foundation background work, and it seems like you are paving that way, and you've started something, and it's going to snowball into something amazing, and me and Doug are super excited, as well as all the Late Night with Chef viewers. We do have a couple guest questions. One, Chef Tony Bingham, old friend of mine, saying hello to all us chefs, and he was listening in, and he had a wonderful time. So thank you,
Sweet.
Chef Tony, for tuning in and having fun with us this hour and a half. And then we also had another viewer asking, what do you think about pancit and pork adobe?
Um, Also my childhood. Pancit is has actually quite a story, but it's one of my favorites. And anything with pork is a okay with me because I come from a village that is praises pork. We try to put pork in everything, even in vegetable dishes. So pork adobo, hell yeah.
All right,
I
well, there
love
you
it.
have it. There's your
uh,
answer. And then just to, we also had another viewer. Is it junk food with a Q, right?
it is. Yes, it's junk food with a Q. Why is it a Q? I just like cheesy names. I don't know. Honestly, like a lot of sari stores in the Philippines have cheesy names, or just the people that own them. I decided to go with cheesy name because it's a cute logo, so why not?
Love
There
it.
you go.
Um, just one question though for you guys.
Yeah, of
I heard you
course.
guys were asking what the
Whoa,
definition of
whoa, whoa,
86
whoa,
or
whoa, whoa,
no,
whoa.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
Speeding up,
Oh,
wrapping it up.
sorry, I thought we were. I thought that's what this is going to. Oh, my bad.
We
We're
are. So
getting there.
Oh,
We're
we're
getting
like
there,
I thought
Chef.
right
you,
there.
I
That
thought
was
you guys
our
were tired of me, so I was like, all right, let's
no.
just let him go to sleep. It's fine.
No, no, we are
Tired.
right
We're
there.
super excited. I mean, you were great to
Oh,
have on the podcast. You shared really, true, true life experiences. You kept it real.
I
You
mean, we're
didn't
building a
fluff
community.
anything, and we really appreciate that. And
Yeah.
I think people viewing in are gonna get the inspiration from it. I think we can all relate to that entire industry, and it's been awesome to share a couple laughs here and there, learn about you, and see what you got going on. And it like I said, me and Doug are super excited. So now that we're thanking you for this amazing podcast, we do have one last question
Apologies.
that we want to ask, and I'll
No,
let
we
Doug
love it.
take the
We're glad.
privileges.
Yeah,
Can you
we
tell that
know.
I've listened to your podcast more than once? I guess.
It's definitely
We love
humbling.
that.
Definitely. So, Chef, without further ado, we are on a journey to try and find the origin of 86. So, can you share some light on this mysterious looming question?
Oh, I'm so excited. I've heard the last two, Chef Amar's and the new dude's definition. I've got a different one that's a little bit more morbid, but I love it because it's morbid. Um, the definition that I heard when I was starting, because I asked why 86 is that it's an old slang term or like secret code for trying to get rid of somebody. So I guess like before military coding, I mean, this is all hearsay, right? So, but before military coding, 86 apparently meant 80 miles out and 6 feet under. And
Okay.
so the theory was you would take whoever you're trying to disappear 80 miles out of town and you would bury him 6 feet under, thereby thereby saying that you try to get rid of him.
86 them.
Yep.
That is, I
That's
love
the one
that.
that
Chef Earl put in,
I
and what's crazy is that you went ahead and asked that, and that's what you got, and that's
I
amazing.
it's one of the best stories because if you look at online what the definitions are, there is like so many definitions, and you're like, how did the
Definitely.
two
Yeah.
numbers have so much history to it? Like that makes no sense.
No,
And then,
it doesn't.
what restaurant did you first hear 86 at?
That would be Joey's when they yelled at me 86. And I'm just like looking at them like, so then what's the problem? We have a lot of it.
That's
I
awesome.
don't
No, that's
understand why are you yelling at me, Chef. There's so
All right,
much.
it's funny because me and my girlfriend were actually discussing this too, and she also thought that like 86 meant a lot of something. So like, I mean, coming into the industry, when someone yells at you 86 this, you're just like, what the fuck's the issue then? Like, I don't understand.
Definitely. And I love the little, side journey we're on here, besides building this community. Like you said, when you Google it, and that's the first thing we notice is there's so many different oranges, so many different reasons, but the one thing is always the same, to every chef we talk to. We all understand what time it is, when we hear 86 for the second time, maybe not the first, but that second time, you know what 86 is, you know what's going on. We scream it, we yell it. It's just understood, but yet the origin, but I like your definition. It's very plausible.
I think it
Not,
has a lot of
like,
I don't even know that word. I'm like out of words today, but
but like I said, I'm a history nerd, right? So that's why I like that definition because like that makes sense actually.
it does
I mean,
make a lot of sense, and it
probably in
sounds like
colonial times, like your duel was 80 miles out west, and whoever died got 6 feet under. I'm like, that makes sense. I don't know why we would use it in the restaurant terminology, but that makes sense.
right.
I
Maybe
love it.
Scoffier and Ritz we're not 86ing a menu item, but maybe a staff member.
I mean, it's possible. Like we, the industry is like half sketchy sometimes, depending on where you are.
Right.
So, hey,
You know, it does. It has its moments, especially with those private events and gatherings like that.
no, those are the best. I don't know what you're talking about.
Best stories come
Well,
out of there.
definitely. Well, Chef, thank you so much for your time tonight, and thank you everybody who tuned in and got to listen to this episode. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking with Chef Earl and just learning about his background and how he made it and finding those similarities. And I really appreciate that touch on mental health and bringing awareness to that issue, especially during these very dark times for our industry. And I think it's important to touch on.
Thanks for having me over and letting me rant out. Yeah, if anything else, I hope people who are kind of doing the same thing as I am, are listening or would hear this would find some comfort in that. Their inaction isn't something that's of a stigma. And yeah, big in this industry, right? So me over and thanks for whoever's listening.
Thank you,
It's been a
everyone.
great time.
As always, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. This was another amazing episode of Late Night with Chefs, Truffle Boy and Doug. And we had an amazing guest, Chef Earl, sharing his amazing experiences and stories. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening.
Stay
Have a great
safe,
night.
everybody. Wear those masks.
Wear the mask over your nose.